that's probably should have been the number one thing I put out there was, and I got his commission rate, how all that works is clear. His base salary is clear, how he needs to approach appointments. But the one thing I didn't give him was any kind of goal to reach. And I was like, how did that happen? And it's probably because I don't have things like what you're talking about. I don't have them set in place where it's very clear cut on what they, I expect from them.
Welcome to Clearing Obstacles, the podcast for leaders and those that want to be. It can be a lonely journey when you find yourself confronted by challenges in business. So get ready to take a journey with me as together we'll hear the stories of real-life business owners and begin to unpack some common business challenges from real-life situations in a way that's both relatable and actionable for you. We bring to bear decades of entrepreneurial and coaching experience and a full toolbox of resources as we introduce you to those professionals who, like yourself, are working hard to build a healthy business and a healthy team. But then we'll also share the way out of those struggles by clearing the obstacles at their origins, helping you get there from here.
Welcome to Clearing Obstacles podcast, where we help you get there from here. This is Coach Matt, along with Coach Dan, and our esteemed guest, Chad Davis. Welcome, Chad. Thank you for coming to share your story with us. How are you today?
No, absolutely. I appreciate it, but doing good. Can't complain.
So what's it like, even though I live in Canton, Georgia, what's it like on your side of Canton, Georgia today?
Oh, it's beautiful today. I mean, I don't know, mid-70s, something like that, sun out. It's great.
Yeah, we had a little cold snap, and only in Georgia where it'll be, freezing one day, and we'll have like 4 seasons in 4 different days, right?
Oh, yeah. The last of the weekend, it was below freezing. Week before that, it hit 80. And that's supposed to go back to it next week, which just means I'll get a sinus infection at some point. Now, it gets me every year.
For sure. Yeah, that pollen doesn't help either. But so, all right, Chad, so you operate your business and you obviously live around Canton, Georgia. Just take a moment real quick to tell us a little bit about your business, how long you've been running it, why you started maybe, what type of business it is.
Yeah, started it, it's right at 14 years ago. And basically it's anything outside, whether it's, and that's just a general way I kind of describe it. People when I to meet with them and they ask what all we do. It's basically anything outside of your house when it comes to, redoing the outside. And by outside, I mean, not necessarily not your windows or paint your house, but your outdoor living spaces. So whether it's pools, patios, sunrooms, pergolas, fireplaces, fire pits. I mean, if you've seen it on Pinterest, it's something we have done or can do.
I got some work for you, Chad.
And that's an easy way to do it. Yeah. I got to be careful with the Pinterest stuff sometimes. People show me stuff, and I'm like, you don't realize you just showed me a $300,000 picture.
Yeah, exactly.
I can do it.
You get a $12,000 budget.
You don't realize what you're showing me. Yeah, exactly. But yeah, that's kind of the gist of what we do.
So how'd you get started? So 14 years ago, what made you start this?
It was, I'll put it this way. I went to college for an accounting degree. Mm-hmm. And I was in college, and then my uncle needed somebody that he could trust to just come, work for his company, doing this same kind of thing. Mm-hmm. So I stayed with him till I was 24.
How many years was that?
And 24, 25. That was right at 14 years ago. I worked with him from I was 20 to 25.
Okay.
And then, I knew I wouldn't work for him forever just because there's only so much money I could make doing that. And I had to figure out something different. And he's actually the one that made me realize I could do this on my own, because he said something to me one day about, I know you won't be working with me, for too much longer. I was like, well, if you pay me good, I will. He's like, no, you won't. You're not built that way. And that was the first time I really thought about it. I was like, okay, maybe I'm not built to work for somebody else.
So how do you differentiate yourself at the point of that when you know that you got 3 or 4 estimates in there? What is your USP?
More times than not, I'll say this without, it's going to sound like bragging. I generally know more than anybody else they talk to. Like, a lot of people will do certain aspects of it, but then they'll sub out, like their pavilion construction and all this kind of stuff, or they can't answer every question the homeowner has about certain things. So they may be able to for 80% of it, but it may be, well, I got to check with somebody else about this. And that has been something I've noticed a lot. And the other one is just being able to show them a portfolio of stuff I've done. Like, here, I mean, look at mine versus, and there's other people that do a great job. But generally it's just because they see, and of course price always, is a factor. But it's generally just that, and I've been doing this long enough, and I know what I'm doing. I can answer any question they have about anything. And that seems to go further with them than what the price point is, or anything like that. But, so yeah, I would say the two things would just be knowledge of it and my ability to design it, I guess, and what I can show them it would look like. And then showing them pictures of stuff we've done, that, and then my reviews are good. So it's a combination of those things, but probably those are the main ones.
Yeah. I'm going to pivot a little bit real quick here. How clear would you say you are, Chad, on your vision for where you want the company to be, say, 3 years from now?
I'm clear on it, but I'll say not 100% because I'm shifting gears a little bit. But I never had a maintenance division. I never had the time to start it. I never really. So I've been looking the last 4 or 5 years as far as just purchasing one. Well, I found one and I'm buying one. I'm actually supposed to close next Friday.
Oh, cool. Congratulations.
I just never liked doing it, as far as, well, with the maintenance part, it takes one of two things. You either have to pay somebody to run it as you're starting it, and you're just going to have to know, hey, look, I'm going to lose, it's going to cost me $75,000 this year. And I probably will just lose that. Or you have to do it yourself. And that's why years ago, I started the maintenance division 3 different times, shut it down within 6 months. Because I wasn't willing to just take a big hit while it was building and let somebody else build it. And 2, I'm a little bit of a control freak, so I don't know if that would ever work out either. So I had to so I just ended up letting it go because I didn't have the time to do it myself. So then it was just, been on the lookout last 4 or 5 years and finally, found one that works. And so that way I can start bringing more of that in there, because I'm going to but get away from something that the structure part does bring in good money. It's just a lot of stress on me, and that goes a long way when it builds up a lot. Because that stuff gets complicated that I end up having to do all of it, and it takes me away from other stuff because the permitting process is just complicated. So I'm kind of shifting a little bit away from the structure stuff, not pushing it as much, but bringing the maintenance stuff on within a company that it already runs itself, kind of. I mean, you know what I mean by that. I mean, there's people in place already. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. So just because I don't want to be working this much when I'm 55 and 60 years old.
How big is your company? How many people do you have?
So depending on what actual real deal employees, about 15.
Okay.
People that I typically are managing on a daily basis, it's about 30.
Okay.
So then the next 2 weeks, it'll be about 45.
How much are you managing those people actively throughout the day? Or do you have a foreman for each of those crews or for each of the jobs that are on site, or?
Yeah. I am a part of all, I'm part of all the installation process of everything, because my name's going to be on it. We'll make sure it's done right. But my guys have been with me long enough that I don't have to be out there with them. I don't, there's a guy on each crew that really, all the guys that run the crews have been with me for a long, at least 7 or 8 years.
So you'll mostly set it up and they'll execute on it and manage the projects.
I still go out to jobs about every 2 or 3 days.
Okay.
I try not to go longer than that without making it out there, unless it's a very straightforward, like this is just a big long wall, Yeah. Nothing complicated about it. I have 2 sales guys that work for me now because I used to do all of it. Mm-hmm. I do the sales, make sure it's installed right, do all of that, and it just was too much. There's too many loose ends falling through. But I'm trying to get out of where they do all the sales stuff Because the one thing I won't ever let anybody else take control of is the installation of larger projects. There's just, I like doing that. That's the part that I enjoy. But two, that's the part where you can lose a lot of money if you don't stay on top of that.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, people don't build a wall right and it falls, there's 50 grand gone. You know, I mean, it just, and I mean, that's the part of it I like. I don't enjoy the sales part of it. I don't hate it, but it's not, I don't, like the office stuff. But so I'm trying to get it where I can just do that and then make it to where it's, whether I ever sell it or not, I needed to have that kind of value. That's another reason I brought the maintenance department in. You can't sell a company like mine without some kind of constant revenue stream that you can say on paper, like, look, these accounts are here. I mean, unless you blow them, it's, they're part of the company.
Yeah. So
trying to sell it like as just a GC, like I am kind of deal. I leave. There's nothing, you can't sell that. I mean, you can, but you're not going to get much out of it.
Yeah, I want to tie these two things together. I asked a bit ago about how clear you are on your vision and where you want the company to be 3 years from now. It's just always a good baseline for it's like pick the point on the map, right? So it sounds like that might be part of that vision, is it having the company to a place where it can be sold. Is that a 3-year idea? Is it firm? Is it kind of a loose idea? Are you thinking 5 years, 10 years? Tell us a little bit more about that if you would.
I don't have a plan on selling it in 3 to 5 years, but I'd like to get it to that point in, 3 years, would be great. 5 years. I want it to be available if I decide to. So I don't know if I want to sell it in 5 years. I can't imagine the thought of me ever not working, even if it's just minimal. But I would like it to be where if I needed to sell it, I could. Mm-hmm. And just also to know it has that kind of value. I just, and keep building it. I enjoy the building of it more than I do anything, but more than I care about chasing the money. I just like I'll say struggle, or I can't think of the right word, but just the part of building it. Yeah, the challenge of it. It's more along the lines of I was certain I wanted to be sellable then, which really once I have this maintenance account part of it, I could turn it would be sellable because then I can package that. Now it wouldn't be profitable with me because I'd have the money I just spent. There'd be no point in it, but technically it would be sellable within a month. Mm-hmm. But 5-year goals would be just more doubling the size of the maintenance part. And I don't think I want to grow too much more of the installation side just because I'm at a point where I'd have to really jump to the highest level to grow my installation side anymore.
Well, part of that sounds unappealing.
The work that it would take, because every time you hit, I don't know the exact terms for it, or you hit certain points where it's almost like a plateau for a little bit. And then you don't, in order to grow, you're not going to make much more money for a while.
Yeah.
And then it's also, I watched my uncle, whose company was in the process of trying to get to that bigger company, and the economy tanked and he about lost everything. He made it through, and he's one of the few that did make it through of the larger companies. I don't need, it's not like like I said, I don't chase the money. So it's like, I make a good living. I want it to be worth money and great. I mean, however much it's worth, but there's a certain point where quality of life is no longer worth the amount of money that I make.
Yeah. Cost benefit.
So in order to get to that size, it's just, and the maintenance is something that I could grow, and it's easier to grow that and put people in place to manage that because it's not as complicated. Anybody I know that can manage what I do on the installation side to where I could someday get away from it, or I'd have to hire people that can run it, run that part if I was going to go to that upper level.
Yep.
They all do it themselves. I mean, it's like if they can, so trying to find somebody that could do that would stay. I've seen it, so many people try, and it's a nightmare.
Yeah.
I mean, and the biggest landscape companies really are no bigger. They're not a whole lot bigger than me as far as installation goes. They just have monster maintenance. sides to their account. They'll have 20 crews running. So, that's kind of, in 5 years, let's say double the maintenance, at least. Mm-hmm. And, I could grow a little bit, but I'm like, I did like last year, did 3.5 million. I'm not trying to get to 10. $5 million in revenue would be about as much as I'd want to take on as far as the large projects. Because then, I wouldn't enjoy it anymore. And I learned, I don't know, probably about 4 or 5 years ago, not the memes you see on the internet or whatever, where, only work 30 hours a week, quality of life kind of stuff. Like, no, that's just being lazy. But I don't want to work 80 hours a week. I got 3 kids that all do sports. I don't want to miss their sporting events. I don't want to, so it's just, I'm happy with the size that it's at now. I make the money I need to make. I'm able to save money. I'm able to do all that. Like I said, I'm not trying to be some $20 million a year company, basically. Yeah. It's just not something I want. I want to enjoy what I do.
Yeah. Matt, I don't know if you're on the same page. I think you are, Matt, on the same page as this. Far be it from me as a business coach to ever try and talk somebody into growth that they don't find to be worth it, to be worth the effort, to be worth the risk, to be, just a pursuit that they or an ambition that they actually aspire to. I think everybody has their sweet spot, and you kind of have to respect that. There are a lot of people who will say, yeah, but you could hustle and have twice what you have now. And I think that's, you're setting up a vision that involves, like you were talking about, a level of ambition that's it's disproportionate the amount of effort that it would take, or at least in your mind at this point, to get there. There's a great contrary argument to that, to saying, okay, so the way that it's running right now, that would indeed be too much work. If you were to triple in size right now, the way the company runs today, there's no way you'd be working, like you said, 80 hours a week, and that's not worth it. But there is always the option entertained to say, yeah, but what if the company ran differently? What if you could find the help that you could trust? What if you could implement systems that offered reliable, predictable, efficient, effective results every single time? Right. And so there's always that counter argument to that. But at the end of the day, if you're like, yeah, but I don't even want to go that far. Again, Matt, if you feel differently, far be it from me anyway, to try and talk somebody into greater ambition or more audacious, goals. Why you should 5X this business. And that's great for some people. It's just not for everybody.
Well, there was something that. Or go ahead, Matt.
I'm on the same page there. It's, I think the older you get, it's the quality of life piece. And one of the kind of questions that keeps popping into my head, which it sounds like you're in a good place with it, Chad, but then I also wonder too, because I've owned businesses before too, right? We all have. And the idea of it is are there times where it does pull you in, and when it too much, and when it does pull you in, is it affecting quality of life? Is there some opportunity there that keeps you in essentially the place that you want to be without, having to sacrifice that at certain moments when it pulls you back into the business to the parts where you're like, oh gosh, this just sucks. I wish I had a better way, or I wish there was a better systemization, or this requires too much of my attention on this particular part. Is there a way to still refine, I guess, is where I'm looking at where you are, and create even more possibility for quality of life? But I don't know. It sounds like you're in a pretty good place with it. But that's kind of the question I keep asking: is, are there times where you are pulled in where you still have to make those sacrifices at times? And is there a solution? Is there something that you'd want to explore there even?
Yeah, there's always. I always get pulled back into a lot more things than I want to be pulled back into. And some of that is, it's my fault. I struggle probably the most with, I make sure not to micromanage people, but I have to really reel back in my control freak part of things. It's a struggle for me to ever and I've forced myself to do it, and it's worked. I have to force myself to not micromanage people, not have to be, there's certain things I obviously have to be in control of and certain decisions I have to make. And that's a lot of them. But, trusting other people to do it right is always something I have to struggle with. And I have to remind myself, I'm like, all right, I can't go over there and try to fix this problem. They got to figure it out for themselves, because it's a problem that's not going to cost me a bunch of money if they mess it up.
Right.
But if they never learn, I'll be kind of, screwed. So, there's a lot of times I get pulled back in. And also, Dan, back to what you said about, what if it, could put those people in place and all of that and be able to grow with, let's just say I'm working a 50-hour week. If I could grow it and never work more than 50-hour week, yeah, that would be great. But I guess I just hit a point where every time you try to grow, there's always going to be risks involved. There's going to be more money put into it, more all of that. And I guess where the reason I kind of decided not to so much do that, I don't need to take those risks. I don't need, if it was just, let's just say I was single, no wife, no kids, no nothing. And because if that was the case, I'd live in a trailer on the land and have a bunch of toys and whatever. But who cares if I lost everything if I made a mistake or money got tight because I, took a risk that didn't pan out. But right now, I haven't seen the need to take any risks to try to grow that because at some point I just haven't really needed to, I guess is the only thing. It's just that risk hasn't been worth the reward to me. I can make more money and have a bigger company, but I'm taking a risk when I don't need to. It's not like I'm, not making much money. And I've done that. In fact, that's all I've done for the last 14 years.
Yeah.
Just take risk after risk after risk.
Yeah.
Some of them worked out. A lot of them didn't work out,
Yeah.
But that's the nature of it. Probably made more mistakes than I have done things right. But I just refuse to ever give up on it.
Yeah.
That's just not in me to do that. Years ago, first 4 or 5 years, I almost lost my house 3 times, almost had cars repossessed. It's part of the struggle of starting it. It just is what it is. So the thought of taking on more risk like that is probably the main reason. There's not a big enough reward to it right now.
Sure.
Now, somehow it was, hey, you don't have to work anymore. Your risk is only a 10%, kind of risk, and we can double your take. Great. I'll do it then. I had to find a way that I can do that without me having to work more, put more money out there, and I've had to learn not to rush things, not to think something has to happen in a year or two, and to be patient with it over time. And I didn't plan to get to this size. Originally, when I started this, I was like, I don't have any desire to be where my uncle is. I don't care. And now I'm where he was. I'm in the same spot that I didn't intend to ever get to.
Yeah.
So, and actually I had a conversation with him, I don't know, about 2 weeks ago. We were joking about it. Just about never wanting to, get to that size. He's like, dude, it kind of happens without you wanting it to happen. He's like, it's just one of those things. If you have a good product and you're good at it, he's like, it's going to keep growing. I'm like, yeah, I get it. So I do go back and forth with that a little bit, just because of I don't want to take a big risk right now. I don't need to, but again, I don't do any of it I'm not out just trying to make money. Obviously I didn't do this to not make money, but I don't chase the money. I just chase that. I like, the ambition part of it. Yeah. That's the part that I, enjoy doing.
Yeah. So as you were describing the place you'd like to be 3 to 5 years, you mentioned you kind of as a sellable proposition. You want to have the options 3 to 5 years from now. In considering what that version of your company would look like versus where it's at today, what needs to change? What if you could identify the top 1 or 2 things that really have to shift in order for you to be that version of that company? What specifically needs needs to change?
The first one is, like I said, just having the maintenance division. Got to have that, and I got to grow that. It's profit. It's pretty profitable now. And just maintenance stuff that does about $700,000-$800,000 a year, with a net profit of around 200 to 215 a year. He's averaged the last 3 years, but I want 3 years, maybe a little pushing it, but I'd say 5 years at least that doubled. If it can double in 3 years, that'd be great. That's the part I got to grow the most. And it's the easier one to grow now that it'll already be in place. So I have to do that. But I also, the little trickier part is I got to find a way to get the installation side of things where I'm not so involved in it, where I'm not doing as much. And that's where I've done, like, I hired, a couple sales guys. And then, like, the next step is I need to find somebody who can actually manage these type projects. They don't have to be able to do all of it, but somebody that can help on that side of it. I do have to find somebody like that, or else I'll be working 60, 70 hours a week like I do now, which is fine. That's not a lot to me.
Yeah. I feel like we're serving up the entree right here, brother. I think this is the thing right there when it comes to both growing the maintenance division as well as getting that install side dialed in where you want it. There are two things that you've said that I've keyed into, Matt. I'll bet you've heard the same thing. You mentioned a couple times about you have a tendency to be a bit of a control freak, and you like your finger on the pulse of things, but you don't want to, and you might find you have a tendency to micromanage, and you try and pull back from that. And I want to tap into both of those things, and it's a little anecdote that I like, especially for micromanagers like myself, where I advocate for an owner to get in place the systems, the processes, the people, get those in place so that you can effectively manage. Because if you are effectively managing, your tendency to micromanage is taken off the table. You don't feel like you need to have that micromanagement. You don't have to be breathing down everybody's neck. You don't have to be out there visiting every site, reviewing every bid, right? Managing every crew, because it's effectively managed. So you don't have to micromanage it. And it's that key right there that allows you to kind of unlock that tendency, or being able to pull back on that tendency to either micromanage or to control everything. Right? That tendency, the people who, in my experience, who tend to have micromanagement issues or over responsibility issues that way, it's only born out of an abundance of care for quality. Right? That's not a bad thing. It's part of what has gotten you to where you're at, Chad, is that abundance of care for quality. But that's the problem. It's the abundance. It's a little bit too much. It's to the point where this care that differentiates you from the competition, this care that has allowed you to build business to where it is, gets off leash, right? It's too much care. It gets to the place where you're taking extraordinary measures to make sure that the control that you hold to make sure that care is taken, that becomes a dysfunction in the business. Right. So like what I'd advocate for, and just present you, tell me what your thoughts are on it. If you could have in place a really effective way to manage a team, to manage the salespeople, to manage the bids, to manage the crews, would you feel more comfortable backing off from the micromanagement tendencies and the control freak tendencies that you might just kind of have inherently in you?
Yeah, no, I mean, I absolutely would. And I have in certain ways. And that's where I've had to force myself. Like I said, I'm just as of this most recent sales guy, I just kind of, I won't say throw him to the wolves in the order that I didn't prepare him for, and he had a good knowledge, being able to sell and design stuff. He came with a background of that. He's been doing it for 20 years. So it's not like he didn't have the capability of doing it, or else I wouldn't have done this. And I still struggle with it sometimes when it's, I basically just say, hey, look, man, I'm backing away from the sales stuff of it. I'm putting this on you. And if I need to step in and help you, that's fine. I'll, for now, I'll review every estimate you do, send me pictures, send me the design, let me look at the pricing, make sure you don't, one, from my sake, the micromanaging part a little bit, need to make sure you don't underbid something and then, we lose a bunch of money. Mm-hmm. But, that was not easy to do, but I know it's something I had to do. Mm-hmm. In order to get away at all.
Well, I love what you did there. You identified the specifics that you need to have your finger on the pulse of in order for you to feel comfortable. Identifying exactly what those are. If you can limit it to that, then you can, like, if you can identify what those things are that you need to know by math, you can subtract all the things that you don't have to know, that you don't have to have your finger on the pulse of to such quite a granular level. Right? Do you see what I'm getting at there?
Yeah. No, because and also when I've looked at the numbers of things, there's being that I get pulled into things, and it's why I knew, like, all right, I'll start with another sales guy where I can back away from this. I know I can make. Let's just say I had him do it. Say to take last year, and he did the sales. Say he sold it, he sold everything I sold last year. So the numbers were the same. I could have been a lot more profitable than I was, even though I was profitable. I could have been a lot more if I was able to focus on things that I need to be focusing on. I don't, because every additional thing that I do is one less thing I can do somewhere else. There's only so much I can work. And only so much I, can do, and that was even possible to do. So that's, like you said, in other words, I've had to do that in order to. So I went back and looked through all the numbers of last year before I hired him, and I was like, there's a lot of, with every company, little things that you could have, I would just say, money wasted because you couldn't focus on it.
Can I jump in? Real quick? Mm-hmm. I'm curious. What I'm kind of stepping back with is I'm wondering about the structure of your company. Have you created organizational charts? Do you have an organizational chart for your company? Does every position have like a position agreement or a job description? People call it different things in there. Do you have some of those things documented for your company?
Not documented. Okay. Just, it's only been in a way of, there's no set chart like that I have on paper. It's been, well, like, my wife runs the office. So whenever she came and started working for me, I just slowly would give her more and more. And we were always, she's my wife. I talk to her all the time.
Yeah.
So, but what she knows she needs to do is gotten very, that's pretty, and that took a while. She's been a stay-at-home mom until 5 years ago. Right. But so I would handle all of that when she came in and took all that stuff. But everybody else, not really, other than just me kind of telling them, hey, this is what you need to do. So do I have it written out like you said? I don't.
Yeah, and I was going to tie that back into what Dan was talking about right there. Is when you can limit the amount of things that irk you, that you feel like you have to have control with through documentation, that relieves you from the ability of having to worry about those things if you document and train on those things. And oftentimes it can come down to the organizational chart and having specific position agreements with everybody where everybody knows what they're supposed to do, how it's supposed to be done, the handbook, all these kind of things. That takes all this stuff that you have to worry about and it puts it somewhere. It's the way that you expect it to be done, right? And not all those things maybe get completely offloaded, but to Dan's point, the more of those that you can document, the more of those that you can train upon, like this sales guy. Let me go off that right for a second. That he had experience and stuff, and you kept on saying that I just had to teach myself to let go. one of the things that can really help you potentially, and all business owners let go, is by documenting the position well enough on how you expect it to be done, Chad, then that allows you to let it go, because you can say, hey, I trained you on this. This is exactly how I would do it. This is my expectation. These are the metrics. These are the measurement. This is exactly what I would do. And so instead of just kind of maybe you said throwing them to the wolves, I think a little bit on that, right? Instead of just throwing them to the wolves, right? You're saying, oh, here you go, right? Here's how I expect you to do it. And when you spend some time to develop them, and it's great that you already have a guy that already has some experience, that certainly helps with it. But there still is those things that you want to control, I'm sure, that if that's documented, you're able to release that more. You train on it, and you know thoroughly that you went over it. And then you can potentially manage those expectations over time, because it's not all up here. You're not stuck in your head having to go, man, I told you to do that, but you didn't have it necessarily training, right? So just let me check in with you. Dan, do you want to add anything to that? That was kind of a long little tirade there.
No, man, you are spot on there. I couldn't agree more. And what I'd add on to that is you can hire people who have experience in the industry, say a salesperson, right? So you hire these couple sales guys. They've got experience in sales, but they have no experience in how All American Landscape does it. And it's up to you to communicate those expectations to them, how we do it at All American Landscape specifically. So until you can communicate those expectations to them, you've probably heard me say this before, you have no right to expect that from them if you haven't communicated that expectation to them. That's probably all relationships, right? For domestic and friends.
You
got to communicate those expectations. And then once you have those expectations in what Matt is referring to, as a job description, position agreement, role foundation, whatever terminology you use for that, then to be able to say, and I'm going to be so there's the accountability piece to that. It's the other side of that coin. So here are my expectations. And every Friday by close of business, I'd like to see your call sheet, what calls you made, where the leads are at, whatever, right? That may be the same thing for the landscape foreman. By the end of the week, I expect you to be running these jobs. And by the end of the week, I would like to see the results in the process, and maybe the timesheets, and maybe the job costing reports, or whatever you want from them. So you are communicating the expectations, and then you're fulfilling on the accountability of making sure that they've met those expectations. That's that management piece I was getting at before. So you don't feel like you're compelled to micromanage, because they know what's expected of them, and they know that by 5 p.m. every Friday, they've got to submit this report to you or whatever. You're going to have a sit down chat with them every Wednesday for 15 minutes or something like that. But there's the accountability piece to making sure that those expectations are getting met. If they're not, why not? If they are, great, attaboy, keep going. And then they feel that you've got their back. Like if there are any gaps between your expectations and their performance, you're able to say, you didn't meet it this week, or this fell short. What can I do to support you? Why did that happen? Otherwise, there's this unspoken resentment or getting pissed off at them or them at you. And that's where some of that disharmony starts to really kind of, mess with the culture. And it's so funny because all of that stuff is upstream from when people start getting grumpy with each other. That's all upstream crap that just didn't get settled beforehand. So clarifying the expectations, and then find a mechanism of some kind with each of those different roles so that you can feel comfortable that they're meeting those expectations. And then you can be like hands off of the micromanagement, right? You don't need to be looking over their shoulder every second of the day, because every Friday at 5, you're going to get that report, and you'll compare it to what your expectations are. And if they don't meet it, now you know what steps would need to be taken.
Yeah, it's kind of funny say that, because literally, 10 minutes before, we got on here, I was talking with, a sales guy, and I kind of realized that other than I'd walked through him, I'd gone to some meetings with him, just let him see how I like to run that initial meeting, questions I like asked, some of those kinds of things. I'd gone over that with him, and in certain basic things like that. It was just, but what I had not done, and I didn't even realize it, and that's what's funny, you're kind of saying that. For lack of better words of putting it, I never even really gave him any sales goals that need to be hit. And I was like, how did I bypass that? Other than him knowing what I did, I told what our revenue was the last couple of years.
Yeah.
I didn't really tell him, and I'm as transparent as I can be, other than showing somebody my bank account.
Sure.
I sat, we had a talk, and I was like, I never really told you this, but like, this is how much you got to sell for us to stay in business.
Mm-hmm. For me to be able to keep you,
you got to sell this to make it worth, or else that, you just have to go.
That's good. Hey, that's one version of communicating.
But this is the amount I need you to make. Yeah. But it's got to be, and I had never actually done that. We got to make this much money, per month.
Yeah.
You got to, and then we had to walk through it because it seems, even when I look at it seems daunting. Like, crap, just to do, a little over $2 million a year.
Yeah.
We got to do $200,000 a month.
Yeah.
That's a lot of money. So it's, I just realized I'd never had that conversation with him. He's been with me for 3 months now. And I was like, that probably should have been the number one thing I put out there was, and I got his commission rate, how all that works is clear. His base salary is clear, how he needs to approach appointments. But the one thing I didn't give him was any kind of goal to reach. And I was like, how did that happen? I just, and it's probably because I don't have things like what you're talking about. I don't have them set in place where it's very clear cut on what they, I expect from them. And I've also found some things that, even more in this conversation here, realizing that I need to sit down with him and explain other things that need to happen that he's going to, that he's in charge of. And is, so that I can, like, the goal of this was for me to back away from the sales completely. And like you said, I do have him turn in every Friday. It's basically a sales log, I'll call it. Who he met with, what estimates he sent out. We sent out that week. And the one thing I don't have that I do need to have is a very clear cut. This is when you call people back. This is when you try to, I've just kind of gone through them each week. Like, all right, look, call this person back based off, what you say. I don't have it clear cut of this is how I want to do it. Because the one thing I hate more than anything is coming off as the old used car salesman term.
Right.
I can't stand that.
Right.
There's nothing that, I don't care how good your product is. If you call me every day, I will never buy it from you. You call me 3 times a week, I will never buy it from you.
Right.
So it's, but I haven't done that with him. And it seemed like things like I was kind of kicking myself earlier. Like, how did I not do that? Part of it was, well, I need to fill some other positions so I can focus on those things.
Yeah.
There's plenty of times, a lot of times that, it feels like running around the chicken with his head cut off, just jumping from here to here to here. And, some of the things I really need to get done don't happen.
Do you think if you think across your company as it is, and there's those gaps, those clear expectations, if those gaps were filled for you, going back to what we talked about, would you see less need to have to micromanage or throw yourself into places of your business than if that was clear?
Oh, yeah. I don't have a problem micromanaging once I see it working. There's been ways that but taking that step is always something I battle with. Like I've had to pull off of certain things of, like, even the first sales stuff he was doing, I got too involved with certain things instead of letting him do certain things by himself. Mm-hmm. Now, as he starts to, be more productive and I see results of it, it'll be easier for me to back away.
Sure.
I'm not the type that even when it's working, I got to be involved in it.
Right.
I don't do that.
Well,
other than knowing.
That's interesting. I got to jump in there because you said once he gets more productive, right? Or if it gets more productive, then I can feel like that. How much time? I wonder if things were more documented, if you had a process that you were able to put into place and train and manage this, this position. Your company did, not just Chad, your company did. How much quicker would that productivity potentially ramp up and get to a place where you might be able to step away from it, do you think? If that kind of system was in place.
Great question.
Could it have expedited his progress?
How much faster, I don't know, but I do feel they definitely could.
Yeah, how much probably wasn't the best question, but
I don't know, because it's, I don't have that. So I don't have anything to compare it to.
Sure. That wasn't the best question, but yeah.
But I do see what you're saying. I do think that if I had some of those things more in place, it would make it easier for me to step away. Because like you said, you have a very clear cut. This is what you got to do. These are your responsibilities. These things are not your responsibilities.
Yeah. Yeah.
As long as you do them correctly, and I'll stay off of you.
Agreed. You're building what I call a value sandwich for that job description or role foundation, whatever that is. When you clarify those and then manage those expectations, and make sure your folks are accountable to them. The first level of value is, as Matt's describing, you get that can be part of the engine for the growth, right? Because if you're the one managing or micromanaging all that stuff, there's only one of you. You're going to hit a ceiling. There's only so much you can grow. There's only so much you can do. If you can clarify and communicate and then manage those expectations, growth, that's the first layer of the sandwich. Start to add the condiments and the meat and the cheese and the veggies. We're gonna overwork this metaphor. But the second one too is you actually get a different level of stress, or rather stress reduction, because again, you're clear on it. Like you said, I'll only micromanage when I feel the need to. Well, you wouldn't feel the need to, because that communication would be coming in. So you got the engine for growth. You've got a different relationship to the control that is a natural tendency for most entrepreneurs, as far as I am, in my experience anyway. So what do we got here? We got growth. We've got your stress reduction. We've got the employees' contentment, right? If they always feel like they're being micromanaged, if they feel like you're looking over their shoulder all the time, they're not going to stick around, guaranteed, right? And now you've lost production. Now you've got to go through all the process of hiring and finding good people again and training them and all of the stuff that goes with that.
That costs money.
Costs money
and time.
Yeah,
so you're going to retain happier employees, better employee retention, better engine for growth, your stress level reduction, all one lever, man, of clarifying those expectations and then managing them. The
Can I add
sea change that happens there? Yeah, please.
That was awesome, Dan. I wanted to add to that, the engine for growth is you're also creating a replicable system, a sales system in there. So that leads into your production as well. And though you do have a lot of unique stuff and whatnot, as you probably experienced, there's salespeople that oversell, undersell, don't sell right, don't deliver, whatever. And then your production team, there's a difference between what's been promised and sold and that of what can be delivered. And I don't know if you've experienced that lately. It's your business is doing well, but that's in my experience working with a lot of various construction and trade businesses, that can be something that happens. You get a salesperson in there that, makes different promises or doesn't know well enough what to say to do. And the production team comes behind and says, well, I don't know what dude was saying right here, because we can't do
right.
that. And we got to change this over here. And this is wrong here. And all of a sudden the customer experience is jacked up as a result of that. Right. And that's name and reputation as well, but it's inefficient. You got one step of it, it goes from here to the next. And now something has to be fixed in there as well. So it helps you just be able to rinse and repeat, and have a very linear kind of way of producing over and over and over again a similar result. And from there, growth gets even easier to do, right? Because you can pull that lever and go, hey, I know that this is going to produce in this particular way, and we're going to be able to fulfill in this particular way. And it makes it, again, systematic with it.
Damn, Coach Matt Pierce, you just built a hoagie. That's what you did. That wasn't a little sandwich. We're talking full-on hero.
Yeah, no, it makes a lot of sense. It's something that I know I'm going to have to do that soon. Just with, regardless of the install company part of it, I know I need to do that. But also with me taking on this other company and their current employees, I'm going to have that in place basically because I'm also starting with new people. It's, I'm going to have it from day one, very clear cut here. This is, and I'll talk with them and see what it is they're doing already. And, you can get a feel for all of that. But then I'm going to have to tell them, well, this is what I expect of you.
Totally.
Mm-hmm.
You haven't been with me since day one.
Yep. They know how to hedge, mow, and trim, but do they know how to do it all American Landscape way? Do they know how to do it the way that it's going to be expected, the way your salespeople are selling it, the way the customers are traditionally happy with your business to justify whatever their invoice is going to be at the end of the job, et cetera, et cetera.
Yeah, no, and that's something like I said, I'm going to have to do it quicker than I planned on with, and then usually these things are, they're good things to happen. It's like I didn't expect need to do this as soon, but I have to with the new company coming in, but it'll also help me like, all right, I need to do it for my existing company also, something I haven't done. But definitely I'm going to have to, because it's going to start. If I don't do that, I'm going to get in over my head and then I'll just be kind of screwed at that point.
Yeah.
And that can happen really, really fast.
I just think of the effect that, we're talking a lot about the business and the productivity, but, Dan, you keep, talking about it too. It kind of keeps coming up a little bit, but that stress factor of that, right? Anytime that there's the need for you to feel like you have to plant yourself back in or pull yourself back in, jump in and make corrections or fix something in there, that just takes your stress up. And that's quality of life. And you had talked about that. That's balance for you, right? You're at a place where you're like, well, revenue is great and all, but the balance between that and my quality of life and, being able to be present for my kids' activities, that's where I start to tip the scale with it. Yeah, I could grow to a certain point, but if it's going to affect me in this way with my family, it's not reasonable. So the more that you can create the systems and processes within your business that keep you from having to jump in and, Band-Aid or patch up holes all the time, the less it's going to affect that quality of life that you talked about in the beginning.
Totally agree, man.
Yeah. And that's it's one of those things I haven't put the time into doing that I need to, partly because I won't say I'm not lost on how to do it, but trying to make sure I do it the right way that doesn't cost me is what I've been working on trying to figure out, how to get it a little bit more, especially in the last 2 years. I've been working more towards trying to get things to where it doesn't all revolve around me. It's to where I don't have to, like, when we go on vacation, when they'll up at we go to the beach, at least once a year. I still work most of it. I can't get away from that. It's like we'll go. Nicole will take the kids down to the beach around 2:00. I'll join them. Or if I am able to go down there, 10 or 11 in the morning, I'll be sitting there on my phone for a couple hours. Kind of talking to the kids, playing with the kids, but answering text messages that come in, answering emails that come in, because I don't have it enough. Like I haven't had a real vacation in 15 years, where other than a weekend getaway, we do those, as often as we can, if her mom can watch the kids or something, or we just take the kids to the cabin for the weekend. Like those are great, but a week of actually, I can actually step away and actually enjoy a vacation. There's no way. I went out to, that doesn't mean I haven't gone on them, but I don't work much less. I went to Jackson Hole, Wyoming for almost 2 weeks. I worked till 3:00 every day.
So hold on. Let me interrupt you. Why no way?
No way can I do that?
Yeah. Why no way?
Because I don't have it set up to run without me.
Yet.
Those exact same things I were talking about. Yeah. I don't currently have those things set up where I could be able to step away from all the day-to-day type stuff. maybe at some point, I'm not trying to say, well, I want to be able to go on a 3-month vacation and not have to answer nothing. I don't know if I have that in me. Stay away from 3 months completely. But to better take a week-long vacation and not have to, give somebody else my phone.
Oh, yeah.
Like, here, you need me, call Nicole's phone. That's one of those things, like, I know it's possible, but feels like an impossible thing to ever be there.
I feel you, Chad. I mean, when I ran the gym, I don't want to make this all about me, but I distinctly remember the first vacation I took that I did not have to and did not check my phone. And it took a while. And there was that itch though, like I need to go grab this thing, something. And then even coming back, I was like, I'm gonna get here and there will have been this thing that got handled. And I walk in and it was like, nah, yeah, we had this little thing and it was all taken care of. I was like, wow, that was nice, dude.
Right.
That was nice.
Yeah. Right. Because if everybody knows how to handle that stuff, either through templates or scripts or proper training, all those expectations that we were talking about getting really clear on, if they know how to do it, I mean, you can still set up a hotline, right? If something's burning down, literally, they can give you a call, they can reach you. But otherwise, you have a good, competent enough team and they have been properly trained. Man, your ability is, I want you to be able to take a 3-month vacation, even if it would just turn into a 3-dayer for you, just so you, and where you could literally, like you said, you went to Jackson Hole for 2 weeks. I guarantee you didn't build a single wall while you were in Jackson Hole, and yet you were still working.
Oh yeah. Well, it's the same thing. I did a 10-day motorcycle trip up in Niagara Falls by myself. One of the greatest trips I've ever been on in my life. But I stopped every 2 hours. But I had my phone up on the phone mount, and if text messages come through, I could see them. And every couple hours, I had to pull over, and it worked them for an hour or two, or I'd get to a hotel. I'd work till midnight.
Yeah.
And then I was still putting in 8 hours a day. It may be, from 9 until midnight, and then, a couple stops in a day. But yeah, that would be great to be able to do that.
All right, let's keep moving this forward. You did a great job at articulating kind of what that gap is as to what some of the frustrations and challenges are. And I think we all agree that being able to clarify the expectations, maybe with an org chart, some kind of an org structure, your employees understanding the way we do it at All American Landscape, defining and managing those expectations. So the fact that you haven't done them yet, all right, whatever, no biggie, we're here now. Now what? What's in the way of you getting that going?
There'd definitely be things I'd have to figure out. I'd have to let's just say 100% is, on a scale of 1 to 100, 100 knowing all of it. I may be like a 30, as far as that, because I have a general, idea of, I know exactly what kind of charts you're talking about. I know what they look like. I know, how they're supposed to be set up. I understand all of that. But then taking that and implementing my business and making the adjustments to it, that would be I'd have to spend some time really trying to, figure that out. That'd be the tricky part of that.
Mm-hmm.
That would take some time of, and like everything else, the learning curve. The first draft would definitely not be the final draft. And it'd probably always be evolving. But it's definitely one of those things where I'd have to figure that out, basically. It's not like I can sit here and say, no, if I were to sit down tomorrow, I'd know exactly the steps I need to take to do it.
Sure.
I'd have some starting points. Like, I'm not completely lost in it. But there's also a lot that I don't know either.
Yeah.
And it's one thing I've always done good at is I know what I don't know. I know what I know, and I know what I don't know.
That's great. And you seem like a pretty motivated guy to figure stuff out. You mentioned that a couple of times, just to echo that back. So I want to advocate really strongly. There are a lot of others who have already done it and written great instruction manuals, whether it's books or consultants or coaches or, there's this thing out there they call the internet. It's crazy. And there are resources, people who have already done this. I just want to emphasize, Chad, you don't have to figure everything out. You might have to apply your values and the way you want it and your brand. You might have to apply all of that stuff, to general templates, but man, that stuff is already out there. Matt, after this call, let's figure out something good to be able to attach as a template for some of the structure. How's that sound? Just as a starting point, even some basic books, like, I mean, go back to some of the essentials that we know. One called E-Myth Mastery. It's huge. It's thick. There's a ton to it. But that's a starting point. There's another one that's probably a little bit shorter called Traction, through a company called EOS. They've got a great resource. It's a relatively easy read. And again, maybe we'll attach a template here for some of that structure as well. But don't feel like you got to start from scratch and invent a wheel all by yourself. There's giants upon whose shoulders you can stand. There are people who know this stuff inside and out, and it's not all up to you to figure out.
I guess I'll make a generalized statement here, and I'm sure there's, because I've come across this with other things, not just I didn't look too much into this specific thing. I think so many times you go read, books like what you're talking about, doing things like this. It always seems to be set on a scale that's a much larger company or much other, to where it's like so much of it doesn't apply. If I'm saying that right.
Mm-hmm. Like
they'll have 15 sales guys, 34, whatever company it may be. It always, maybe I just haven't looked in the right places.
Yeah, might be the wrong books.
But, even if it was just, trying to look into bookkeeping, how to, when I was first figuring that stuff out, how to really do it accurately, and how to really be able to see, am I making money or am I not making money? Mm-hmm. Everything I'd read and tried to find was a little difficult because it was all like set for like how they do a $20 million company. Well, dude, I'm not a $20 million company. At that point, I was doing $500,000 a year. So it's, like I said, maybe I just haven't looked in the right places or whatever. And so I've kind of shied away from reading too much of stuff like that just because it seemed like so much of it, it's like, all right, I'll read a 400-page book and maybe 5 pages of it I can use. And then I'm just like, screw it, I don't have the time for that. So that's, and maybe I'll point in the right direction as far as that goes. But that's one thing I've always kind of found it irritating. And I think that even goes back to, I think, Matt, what I told you after I listened to the first 2 podcasts is like everything you ever listen to is always somebody got it all figured out. All their guests all seem like they're some CEO of, I don't know, Walmart. Like, well, of course they got it figured out.
Right.
So, I know a lot of people, business owners that, I mean, crap, every person I know, no matter how successful a business there is, feels lost at points. So it's,
of course,
I guess finding the right books and the right program has been difficult in a lot of things. So I kind of stopped looking for other stuff and I personally have done it off of trying to figure things out by looking at companies of people that I know, like my uncles, for example, or one of my best friends used to own a big stone yard around here. And so I've just tried to make some talking with them, what works for them, what doesn't work for them. That's been the only way I've ever known to try to figure those things out. So yeah, I guess I think of where I'm at a point to that, but now I can't remember. But yeah, it's just always been a little bit tricky trying to figure that stuff out, to find some kind of, and maybe I look too much into it, but let's just say we're going to read a book about how to set up those charts and stuff. Mm-hmm. Just finding one that actually I feel like can apply to me and what I'm doing without it just being a bunch of like, I don't think any of this really like.
Would E-Myth Contractor be a good one for him to start out with? I haven't read that one.
That'd be a good one too. I'm thinking of
Traction is good though, Chad. I'll tell you that much. Traction's a solid one as well.
Super solid.
I probably looked too much into wanting it to be. I probably looked too much into wanting it to be exactly like mine instead of just realizing, all right, the same, I'll say, program can almost work like a plug and play. It doesn't really matter what company it is. You know, sales guy's a sales guy.
Right.
You know, of course, every one of them is going to be tweaked.
Right.
I have a bad habit of I want the exact answer and I want it now. You know, I don't want to. I don't want to have to figure it out. But give me the template and just tell me this is it. And if it's not it, I don't want to see it.
I want you to lean into that thing you mentioned earlier. You said being in this for 14 years, one of the muscles that you have exercised and grown over that time is your patience, and give yourself some credit there. I think if you give yourself a timeline that is realistic and you say, I don't know, you got 12 months in a year. If there are 12 different roles in your company and you set yourself just a very modest goal of every month, I'm going to take one of those roles and I'm going to have a sit down with everybody who sits in that seat or walk behind that mower or whatever it is, everybody who holds that position once a month. By the end of the year, you would have all of that done. And by the way, that's a super modest goal. I think you could probably just about do one a week. And that's far more realistic.
Yeah,
you give it 2-3 months. Yep. 2-3 months, you'd have that. Oh my God, but it's going to pay dividends, man. I mean, I always look at the return on the investment of something like that. If you have to invest, I mean, say on the upside, you've got to invest 3 hours to build a role foundation for somebody with the expectations, kind of a glamorized, a more comprehensive job description. If it took you 3 hours to do that, do you know how many times that would pay itself back in questions you didn't have to answer, in problems you had to fix later, in refunds you had to give somebody, et cetera, and the stress
hiring,
the hiring employees who don't know what the hell you expect of them, they're not going to stick around. That's an ROI. It's hard to even calculate. If you have to meet with a building inspector to get a permit, and you're the guy to go meet with them, and they set an appointment with you at Tuesday at noon, and some knucklehead phone call comes in at 12:15, somebody asking some question. Do you answer that phone call? Do you go run that errand just because it feels a little bit urgent? No, you take that meeting with the building inspector because it's non-negotiable. You know that's right. It's got a position in your calendar and you're not going to compromise on that. If you can elevate this kind of strategic activity to that height, to that level of priority, and make it non-negotiable, you put something down in your calendar for 3 hours twice a week, 1 hour 3 times a week, something like that, just making that commitment and then holding that as a non-negotiable for yourself, brother, you can't lose. But you have to elevate it to that level of non-negotiability. You can't compromise on that. Hold it as, you're perfectly capable of setting and keeping a meeting. You do it all the time. You're just not doing it with yourself.
Yeah, no, I definitely don't. And doing it in a way, like I think you said, of like almost like put it on my calendar. Okay. What day next week can I set aside 3 hours? And I found that with a lot of things, but if I just put it on my calendar, it would happen. You know, saying that because I know with other things that I do, I just know nothing will be scheduled. You know, I'll have no appointments scheduled then. Yeah. I'll have but I think what my problem's been is like, all right, I can say I need to do this 3 hours next week, but I won't tell Nicole who handles all the scheduling. You know, so then she'll schedule, and then it's like, I never have the time to do it because I never set aside a distinct time, right? From 12 to 3 next Wednesday. Right. This is happening. Right. Don't schedule me anything before it. Nothing, right? You know, just that window, I haven't done that. But the importance, and I think that's probably the only way I would do it. Totally. The importance thing doesn't always rise to the level of urgency that would cause you to stick to it. Matt, I'm going to echo words back to you from a previous conversation. I think it was with Andrew a couple episodes ago about getting clear on the price that you're paying for not doing that. And if you can have an acute sense of exactly what that price is, the stakes are high enough. You'll stick to it, right?
Yeah. I actually wanted to tie it into, I don't know if you know this, Dan, but he was a competitive power lifter. And he also worked out at my gym. And I would say you prioritize that kind of stuff, right? You really put that as hard training. You put it on your schedule. That's a long game. You made it that priority. Yeah. Yeah. How can you put that same level for you, this is just for you. Maybe some of the other people that exercise that listen to this, right? How can you put it at that same level of priority that says, hey, this is a long grind, right? I'm not going to see results right away. I'm not going to pull that deadlift PR right away. I got to put in the work in between. And it's arduous. Sometimes I don't want to do it. Sometimes it's not my favorite thing to do. But ultimately, I want to get that achievement, that goal, that down the road thing. It's the same kind of stuff with the strategic work. It's a consistent kind of grind.
Yeah, because I had set times that
right.
Saturday mornings, 9 to 12. That was squat day. Mondays at certain time, or bit that had 3 days a week. Nothing happened in those times.
But so much of that, Chad, right? You're delaying the result, right? You get the feeling, yeah, it worked out, it was great, all that kind of stuff. But that big result of that competition, of that PR, that winning, that whatever it may be, that's way down the road, right? And this kind of work is similar to that. I'm not trying to put it out that it takes that long, but it's similar to that, where you prioritize it and you grind away at it for this result later on down the road that is what you're looking for, what your aim is for, right? Your goal. Does that make sense?
No, it makes perfect sense. And I think the part that has made me put it off has been more of I know that if I do those things, that will in turn, have a reward, make more money, whatever you want to, less stress, whatever, a number of different things. It's more difficult to quantify. It's not like you can sit here and say, look, if you do this, you'll make $100,000 more next year. Yep. So it's hard to look at it that way. Whereas other things, like just to say, the powerlifting thing, I know that this is the goal. I have a set. If I do this, this will happen. So that's one thing I've always struggled with numerous different avenues of my business.
But there is one that you could quantify, and one of which is, dude, I went on vacation and I didn't have to check my phone.
That's true. And that's I guess that's the kind of way I need to, for lack of better terms, trick myself. It's like, it's a realistic thing, but just say, look, hey, how bad do you want to go on a real vacation?
I think the first next step that you need to do, and this might sound silly, but this sets a goal line. This is that 26.2 mile marker. This is that PR for your deadlift. But you need to, with your wife, put on your calendar a vacation at some point in the future. Take your time, figure out when it's going to be, where it's going to be. Hell, maybe even make the reservation. But you've got to have this moment where you say, that's the goal line right there. That's how we need by this time to be at that place. So that's at least specific enough. That's the starting point. I'd say your second next step, Matt, feel free to weigh in here if I'm missing any of these. I think the second one is you need to, while you got your calendar open, you need to block out some times during your week, minimum 5 hours a week. Those can be 1 hour blocks. They can usually be a couple 90-minute sessions, whatever you need to do, but block out some time to do this strategic work so you can extract yourself just enough to earn the dividends on that work. Make sure that it's work that's going to be high value, that ROI, return on investment, whatever you're investing that time in, that you're going to be able to recoup that back. For like I said, 3 hours into a roll foundation for somebody and being clear on what that is, if that's going to save you 20 hours of hiring time over the next 3 months, you just got a 7-to-1 payback on that time. So set some time in your calendar. That's a second thing. Specific blocks during the week, whenever you're going to be in that best space, whenever maybe it's slow in the business, maybe it's before everybody's awake, maybe it's certain times in the afternoon when things are humming along out in the field, whatever. But first two action items, man, have to do with your calendar. Set your vacation, set your strategic time. And then the third thing is during that strategic time, I think the next, again, high leverage item is to create those role foundations or identify those expectations that you have for the different roles within your company. And you might have to start with an org chart. You might need to go upstream a little bit from that and identify even what all of the different roles are. And happy to work with you on that outside of this. And Matt, I know we'll try and provide some resources as well after the call here for some structure for that. But clarifying those expectations, get those role foundations written for your team. And it sounds like you've got a golden opportunity right now to do that either with your salespeople or your maintenance crew. And I think the golden opportunity is with the maintenance crew because they're starting fresh, right? You've got a great chance to make first impression with them about what it's like to work for All American Landscape. Those are the three things that I'm hearing. Matt, am I missing anything that you've heard? Or you, Chad, has anything come up where you're like, I got to put this on the list too?
I think that's pretty thorough, and I think it was very concise. It's valuable use of time. I love the idea of putting out that goal. Got to put that goal out there, and then from there, you're going to fill in the gap of, okay, how is it that I'm actually going to be able to enjoy that vacation? Maybe it's not perfect 100%, but you're working towards it, and you get enough done that it is a difference that this time than it was next time. But if you don't put that out there, then what's going to fill in the time from now to that point, and what actions are you going to take in between? I think everything that Dan lined up there was ideal. Yeah, perfect. It would help.
No, it's funny you said the vacation thing. I mean, because last, December was my wife's 15th year anniversary. We had talked about for years going on like a trip out of the country, something more than, just me and her, something that's that, more than just, going to the beach or whatever. And the time came around, we can't do that. I can't go out of the country. I can't do, there's no way.
Yeah.
You're putting me too far away from, to come back if there's a problem. I can't just up and drive home if there's a problem, or catch a flight back home. It'd take me 2 days to get back home. My wife's going to love when I tell her this.
No, we blew the surprise. Damn it. You had a great chance here.
That's probably about as good a goal as I could have for that, honestly, because I'd rather have that than it just tell me, hey, you better make more money. Like, that's great. It's not a bad thing. But, you said I get to take her on a trip and not have to be working. That's
priceless.
That's a goal I like better than just, hey, you'll make some more money. Exactly. Yeah. You can't beat that.
Couldn't agree more. So anybody wanting a list of that, you'll see them in the show notes, of course. And Chad, man, thank you so much for joining us today. Really appreciate getting the chance to meet you. Matt already knew you and had a leg up on that one, but I love just meeting you and hearing your perspective on business and your approach to it and everything. I mean, it seems like you've got so much stuff dialed in and you're just leaving a few things on the table for value for your time and how you're spending it. And I can't wait to see a follow-up conversation with you and where you're at. Maybe send us a postcard from your vacation.
No, absolutely. I appreciate it. I had fun. Learned some things I need to do also. So
right on.
Awesome.
Thoroughly enjoyed it.
Good to have you, Chad. Good to see you again.
I appreciate it. Thank you. You too, man.
All right. Yeah. Thanks again. We appreciate you joining us today for the Clearing Obstacles podcast. We'll catch you on the next one.
Yes, sir.
We hope you've gotten the value you were looking for on today's episode. And if you want more like this, please subscribe to the Clearing Obstacles podcast on your favorite listening platform. You can go to clearingobstacles.com for more information. And there you'll find links to other episodes, as well as how you can get in touch with us to set up your own customized coaching experience on a regular basis to clear your own obstacles. Your business should serve your life. So let us help you get there from here, because nobody should do this on their own. We also want to thank you for listening and gratefully acknowledge everyone who helped make this podcast possible. And a special thanks to our Supreme Assistant and Navigator, Noah Wertheiser, to Arctic E for the brilliant musical themes of Clearing Obstacles, and to the team at Hivecast for your amazing work and legendary patience.